The empire of Alexander the Great was one of the most remarkable in history, vast in size, brief in duration, and lasting in influence. Born in 356 BC in Macedon, Alexander became king at the age of 20 after his father, Philip II, was assassinated. Philip had already united much of Greece under Macedonian rule, and Alexander inherited both his army and his ambition. Over the next decade, Alexander launched a whirlwind of conquests. In 334 BC, he invaded the Persian Empire, defeating King Darius III at the decisive Battle of Gaugamela in 331 BC. With Persia overthrown, Alexander pushed further, marching his armies through Egypt, Mesopotamia, and deep into Central Asia, even reaching the borders of India. At its peak, his empire stretched from Greece to the Indus River, making it the largest the world had yet seen. Alexander's success was built on tactical brilliance and the might of the Macedonian phalanx, combined with fast-moving cavalry and his own daring leadership. He founded dozens of cities, the most famous being Alexandria in Egypt, which became centers of trade, culture, and learning. But Alexander's empire was fragile. In 323 BC, at just 32 years old, he died suddenly in Babylon, likely from fever. With no clear heir, his generals, the Diadochi, carved the empire into rival kingdoms: the Seleucid Empire in Asia, the Ptolemaic dynasty in Egypt, and others. Though it fragmented almost immediately, Alexander's empire launched the Hellenistic Age, when Greek language, art, and philosophy blended with local cultures across 3 continents. His legacy wasn't the empire itself, but the cultural fusion that shaped the ancient world and laid foundations that even Rome would build upon. The Roman Empire was one of the most influential in history, shaping law, government, architecture, and culture for centuries to come. Rome began as a small city on the Tiber River, grew into a republic, and after years of civil wars transformed into an empire under Augustus Caesar in 27 BC. Augustus established a system that balanced the appearance of republican tradition with the reality of one-man rule. This began the Pax Romana, a period of relative peace and prosperity that lasted over 200 years. Rome expanded across Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East, encircling the Mediterranean, which they called Mare Nostrum, or RC. Roman strength rested on its disciplined legions, an extensive road network, and efficient administration. Provinces were ruled by governors, taxes funded the army and infrastructure, and Roman citizenship gradually expanded to include conquered peoples, binding them closer to the empire. The empire's culture blended Roman, Greek, and local traditions. Public works such as aqueducts, amphitheaters, and forums showcased engineering and wealth. Roman law laid down principles that still influence legal systems today. But Rome was not invincible. Economic troubles, plagues, political instability, and pressure from invading tribes weakened the empire. In 476 AD, the Western Roman Empire fell when the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed. Yet in the east, the Byzantine Empire carried on for nearly another 1,000 years, preserving Roman governance, law, and culture. Rome's legacy is everywhere in our legal codes, languages, architecture, and the very idea of empire itself. The Maurya Empire was the first great empire of India and one of the largest in the ancient world. It was founded in 321 BC by Chandragupta Maurya, who rose to power with the guidance of his advisor Chanakya. Together, they overthrew the Nanda dynasty and built a centralized state that stretched from Afghanistan and the Indus Valley across the Ganges Plain and deep into the Deccan Plateau. The Mauryas created a strong system of governance. Provinces were ruled by governors, taxes were collected through an organized bureaucracy, and a standing army ensured stability. The principles of statecraft were outlined in the Arthashastra, a political text attributed to Chanakya, which emphasized strategy, economics, and surveillance. The empire reached its height under Ashoka the Great, R 268 to 232 BC. At first a fierce conqueror, Ashoka fought the Kalinga War, where the scale of suffering horrified him. Afterwards, he embraced Buddhism and transformed his rule. Ashoka promoted Dhamma, a policy of nonviolence, tolerance, and welfare for his subjects. His famous rock and pillar edicts spread these ideals across the empire. Ashoka also sent Buddhist missionaries abroad, helping the religion spread to Sri Lanka, Central Asia, and eventually China. In this way, the Maurya Empire became a key driver of cultural and religious exchange across Asia. After Ashoka's death, the empire gradually weakened through internal struggles and external invasions. By 185 BC, it collapsed, but its legacy lived on. A model of large-scale Indian rule and the spread of Buddhism far beyond India's borders. The Qin dynasty was short but hugely important in Chinese history. In 221 BC, the king of Qin, Yingzheng, defeated the other warring states and declared himself Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. For the first time, China was united under one ruler. The Qin set up a strong central government. They standardized coins, weights, measures, and even the writing system, so trade and communication became easier across the empire. Roads and canals were built to link regions, and parts of earlier border walls were joined together, the first version of what later became the Great Wall of China. Qin Shi Huang also left behind one of the most famous discoveries in archaeology, the Terracotta Army. Thousands of life-sized clay soldiers were buried with him to guard his tomb, showing both the wealth and power of his rule. But the Qin dynasty was harsh. The government followed legalism, a strict philosophy that demanded obedience. Laws were severe, punishments brutal, and people resented the heavy taxes and forced labor for building projects. After Qin Shi Huang's death in 210 BC, rebellions broke out. Within just 15 years, the dynasty collapsed. Even though it ended quickly, the Qin dynasty left a lasting mark. It created the model of imperial rule that later dynasties, especially the Han, would carry forward for centuries. The Han dynasty is often called one of China's greatest golden ages. It began in 206 BC, after the fall of the Qin, when a rebel leader named Liu Bang rose to power and became the first Han emperor. The Han would rule for over 400 years, shaping China's culture, government, and identity for centuries. The Han kept many of the Qin's ideas, like a central government and standardized systems, but they ruled with more fairness. Instead of harsh punishments, the Han promoted Confucianism, a philosophy that valued respect, education, and moral leadership. Officials were chosen through exams, which meant talented men, not just nobles, could serve in government. Under the Han, China grew rich and powerful. Farmers produced more food thanks to new tools like the iron plow. Trade flourished along the Silk Road, linking China to India, the Middle East, and even the Roman Empire. Silk, paper, and porcelain were carried west, while horses, glass, and new ideas came east. The Han also advanced science and technology. They invented paper, improved seismographs, and made great progress in medicine and astronomy. Chinese art, literature, and history writing also thrived during this time. But by the late 2nd century AD, problems grew. Powerful families gained too much influence. Taxes weighed heavily on peasants, and rebellions like the Yellow Turban Revolt weakened the state. In 220 AD, the Han dynasty collapsed and China broke into rival kingdoms. Still, the Han left behind a powerful legacy. For thousands of years, people called themselves the Han Chinese, and their culture remains at the core of China's identity today.